Thanks, Bushe. It seems former President Jacob Zuma may be successful in buying himself some more time. The Court has agreed to hear former President Jacob Zuma's application to have the ruling of contempt of court and subsequent 50-month imposed jail sentence rescinded. Zuma and his application to challenge the ruling has stated ill health and advanced age as factors why he should stay the sentence. The application will be heard on Monday, while the State Capture Commission of Inquiry is also expected to file answering affidavits by today, come 4 p.m. The applications and responses are likely to be carried out into the rest of the week. Jacob Zuma is also expected to address the media today to give some updates on the developments. What do we make of this? Is this another one of Zuma's tricks up his sleeve? I don't know. Political analyst Sanusha Naidu will be telling us more. Very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. It's pretty clear, Sanusha, that since Tuesday, the Zuma's legal team has been hard at work, moving to astronomical heights to ensure that they buy the former president some time by finding a legal loophole. At the same time, while the former president has said that he will not go to prison, we know that there is a lot hanging over his head when it comes to the outcome of the Constitutional Court.
Good morning, Bo, and to the viewers. I cannot agree with you more. It's been fascinating. You know, we've been through so many roller coaster rides in South Africa when it comes to the issue of corruption, the question of state capture. The whole legal gambit has been through this kind of roller coaster revolving door. But I think what's really interesting is the way in which this whole process has unfolded now by Friday evening, where the application or the affidavit to rescind or amend the 15-month sentence that was handed down by the majority view of the justices of the Constitutional Court indicates that there is also the question of whether the Constitutional Court handled the process in the manner that could have created this loophole to be kind of plugged out in a way to try and to mitigate the loophole in itself. And I think this again tells us to what extent the legal gambit of Mr. Zuma and his legal team will try and find the kind of loopholes in the whole process. Now, there's two things happening here. There's the political angle to this whole situation, and there's the legal angle to the situation. The legal angle says, you know, the rule of law is the rule of law. The Constitution and Apex Court is the highest body in terms of the judicial system in the country. And of course, the question now becomes does Mr. Zuma go to, is he still liable, if that's the word to use, is he still liable to present himself to the police station and still have the order that was signed by Justice Kempepe to be effected? Or do we wait now and see for the 12th of July? And I think this is where legal interpretation and legal experts are differing in terms of interpretation. They are essentially trying to say, some are saying that it doesn't hold water now because he's put this affidavit in. The Constitutional Court has agreed to hear this application, as well as the fact that it kind of puts the order that has been the order of committal. It puts it into a kind of a back burner, and so he doesn't have to present himself because the issue is now under legal review again. On the other hand, the others are saying that it does matter because the order in itself has already been signed, and so he has to present himself until the application is heard. So we're caught in a very, very interesting kind of legal loophole there as well in terms of the interpretation. On the other side of this is the political implications and interpretation, where we are, where as you rightly asked, is this buying time? It's really intriguing, if not completely, sometimes bizarre. I think that the Constitutional Court is being asked to review its own order. It's being asked to review its own judgment in this whole process. And I think only Mr. Zuma and his legal team would have done this. But what it does do, depending what the outcome is of the application hearing and the decision made by the Constitutional Court, it does open up a legal loophole for the entire legal system in the country.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned the two angles, a legal angle and a political angle. And Yesterday, we saw one of the biggest crowds seen so far since this matter began and the gathering started happening outside the former president's homestead in Nkandla. We saw suspended ANC Secretary General Ace Magashule and some members of the top six also going to the former president's home. Was this expected at all?
I think it was. I think in the run-up to what the events that unfolded yesterday outside Mr. Zuma's home, I think this was something that was on the cards. I mean, this has been the kind of default strategy for those that have been appearing before court, those that have been on charges, etc. We've seen this happen a number of times, whether it was Ace Magashule, whether it was Jacob Zuma, etc. These are the kind of personalities that we see happening with regard to what was transpiring outside of the Nkandla homestead. And I think what was also very important to note here is it was happening during lockdown level measures, lockdown level 4 regulation measures. And again, there was the media and commentary and in social media spaces, people were very frustrated, people were uncertain, people were asking whether there are two different regulatory frameworks when it comes to corona pandemic lockdown measures. Does KZN have its own? Does the rest of the country have its own? Why the police were so relaxed, if not much more visible, in upholding and implementing the regulations. There were a whole lot of issues that also were kind of an undercurrent to what was happening outside the Nkandla homestead. But I think at the end of the day, what I think Mr. Zuma and the others, the big wigs that came in there to show their support, particularly those that have also been under a cloud of controversy, is the fact that they want to actually demonstrate to their political opponents in the party and plus to the broader South African public that there is support, there's groundswell support for Mr. Zuma, that the idea that Mr. Zuma may have, that the support that Mr. Zuma has may be waning is probably something that needs to be tested. And so what you saw yesterday was partly people coming in to support Mr. Zuma, but also you saw a bit of a kind of, people were kind of very relaxed. It seemed to be a very jovial atmosphere. It seemed to be quite a sense of people hanging around the homestead, which again, in times of pandemic, I don't see how this is possible, but nevertheless, it does happen. And so I think to put that in context, what does this mean now, once you have the application heard and once the decision is made? Do we see the similar type of support that remains there outside the homestead, or is it just a once-off? Because yesterday was the way in which everything was mobilized, tents, a stage, music, people. Even after there was the announcement that the Constitutional Court will hear this application on the 12th of July, people just still hung around.
The reason I ask whether or not this was expected is because the ANC has been accused of conflating state matters and party matters. And the other interesting element was ANC KZN Secretary Dumiseni Ntuli saying that he is there to plead with the former president to not cause any further problems because his actions could affect the ANC in a negative light. I mean, how much merit is there to that statement on the overall image of the ANC in assessing the behavior of the former president?
I think, Bo, that it can't get any worse than this. If not, it's just completely out of sync. I mean, the image and the branding of the party has been in such a dire straits. I mean, you look at this and you say to yourself, how much more clearer does it get that this is such a factionalized party? The image that you saw out there, the fact that you had the provincial leadership, as well as the fact that the ANC had basically postponed its national economic executive conference, and more importantly, had sent out or deployed, according to media reports, NEC executive members to hear or to be in the province, tells you how much of a disaggregated, a disparate, and a fragmented institution, organization it is. I think to go in there, to go and ask a ex officio member of the NEC, a former state president and former president of the party, and plead with him to say, let's not cause any more division this, in this context, in this place, tells you how dire the situation is in the province, but also with the party. And I think this idea of state versus party, or state, party, party, state, has become almost, a contradiction in itself. It's become almost a sense of saying, where does the party end? Where does the state begin? Where does the state end? Where does the state begin? But we've been having these debates for a long time. And it seems to me that the bigger challenge here, or the bigger structural question here, is if you really vested in promoting the ANC as a united institution, in promoting the ANC as the institution or the party that governs the country and needs to govern the country, then what you are doing is just completely dislocating the party. You are essentially undermining it. You are essentially bringing its reputation into disrepute. And essentially, I would argue that if I'm very interested to hear what the poll results are from your poll that Bushley had just announced.
Yes.
But I think what's important as well is the idea that, if you are such a committed member to this organization that has such a rich history of liberation and so forth, why do you want to bring it? Why do you want to undermine it in this way?
Okay, we're going to have to leave it there for now. Of course, there's plenty more. I mean, we could have gone on for an hour. Political analyst Sanusha Naidu painting the picture for us, of course, as we wait with bated breath, I suppose, to hear what former President Jacob Zuma will have to say when he addresses the media this afternoon. We will continue to bring you live developments from Nkandla.